Welcome back, everyone, to the Black Brain Trust. This is episode 114, Space and Technology. I'm here with my co-facilitators, Lionel and Anti-Gravity.
Hello, how's everyone doing today? How you doing today, Mike? How you doing today, Anti-Gravity?
I'm good, brother.
I'm
Yourself?
doing good, guys.
I'm good, I'm good.
Okay. If you all want to follow along, the docket is in the description beneath the video. We will get started. All right, first article, seekingalpha.com. Microsoft is closing in on Amazon in the cloud. Summary. Microsoft Azure posts another quarter of 75% plus year-on-year sales growth, which is higher than Amazon AWS. It seems like more and more users are using Microsoft Azure. Azure has the potential to meaningfully drive Microsoft overall growth over the coming years. It seems Microsoft investments in the cloud space continue to yield healthy returns. It, its Azure division registered a yet another quarter of 75% plus sales growth on a year-on-year basis. Although perma bears are peddling the narrative that Azure's growth momentum is slowing down, there is actually reason to believe that Azure is meaningfully gaining ground against Amazon's AWS, Amazon Web Services, in the hyper-competitive cloud space, and that the former actually has the potential to bolster Microsoft's overall growth going forward. State of Azure. Let me start by saying that there are several competitors within the IaaS, Infrastructure as a Service, PaaS, Platform as a Service, and SaaS, Software as a Service, cloud subverticals. There are established firms such as IBM, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, DigitalOcean, and then there are startups that are vigorously trying to capture a piece of the fragmented cloud market. However, as enterprises scale up and their OPEX budgets, operating expenditures, OPEX budgets grow, they tend to trust established cloud services with their applications, data outreach, and privacy amongst other requirements. I suppose the catalyst here has worked in Amazon AWS favor over the past decade and is propelling Microsoft's Azure growth of late. Now that it also has a diverse product portfolio. Now comparing cloud offerings based on their pricing, features and flexibility offered would involve 100 plus pages of technical analysis, and it would simply be beyond the scope of this article. However, when it comes to growth, Microsoft investors can rest assured that their company has been benefiting from its investments geared towards scaling its Azure platform. So we had a hangout a week or so ago discussing cloud, and actually it was a couple weeks ago. Black IT Talk discussing cloud. Microsoft is only recently catching up to where Amazon is the last couple of years. Amazon's AWS, which is Amazon Web Services, has been the 800-pound gorilla in the market because they had a head start back in 2007, 2008. Microsoft only just came around the last couple of years. Although Microsoft is a household brand name, they don't have anywhere the same momentum that Amazon has, and at least initially. Now, they're seeing rapid growth because different companies who were using traditional services or using traditional infrastructure, data centers in-house, are now cycling out their infrastructure because of warranties and technological life cycle. They're starting to move on to the cloud. So Microsoft is seeing massive amounts of growth because you have Active Directory, which is their LDAP, which is their local directory platform for managing users and machines. And then you have Exchange, which is and you have Office 365. You have other services such as Windows Server, just a variety of products that Microsoft has that you would have had to install on your own could now be, had in the cloud of Microsoft's cloud Azure. Amazon really doesn't have that. Amazon has other services, but there's nothing compared to what Microsoft has to offer because Microsoft is a traditional player, and Amazon is not. Although Amazon is the 800-pound gorilla in the cloud, they offer infrastructure as a service as opposed to what Microsoft has, which is a smorgasbord of products that you would have had traditionally on your machine is now available in the cloud. So it doesn't even matter anymore about what Amazon has to offer, in my opinion, based on my observation. Microsoft offers infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service, function as a service. Um, Amazon offers infrastructure as a service and function as a service, and as well as platform as a service. But if you're a traditional environment, you kind of want to stay with the same brand, which is Microsoft. If you have a Windows machine, you have a Windows backend, kind of want to stay with Microsoft because that's what your environment is tailored around. You gentlemen have anything you want to add to this?
Yeah, we spoke about this last week. How um, Microsoft Azure is catching up with Amazon's web service, AWS. Now you mentioned that because of the traditional software suite or Office suite that Microsoft has, had a hold on these past couple decades, really. That is what's driving people to migrate or even want to use Azure for cloud services, and that, to me, I believe, is a big piece of the puzzle because they have that Microsoft Excel, Word, PowerPoint, and the other Office suites, and you can use that seamlessly with their cloud services. I think, me personally, I think that's a big reason as to why Microsoft Azure is gaining ground on Amazon Web Services for cloud dominance. Not specifically cloud dominance, but they're just taking much of the power away from Amazon.
I guess my question is, what is Amazon doing to kind of, I guess, fight off Microsoft in terms of keeping their dominance in the field? What else could they offer to entice people who would have gone to Microsoft to go to Amazon? Would they themselves try to compete in web services like not Office, but the mail services like Gmail and um, the ones that Microsoft has?
No,
What do you
they
guys
don't have.
think?
They don't. Amazon is the infrastructure as a service um, type of cloud provider first, more than anything else, and then function as a service and software as a service. They make a lot of money doing what they do, so they have no interest in competing against Microsoft because they already have the customers. Um, it's Microsoft that needs the customers more than anything. So Microsoft has to woo um, a lot of those potential customers that would have went to Amazon to come to Microsoft. And like Lionel said, we had covered an article last week that talked about Microsoft Azure actually funding startups um, and wooing them with their services. That's something that Amazon doesn't do. Amazon is a direct for-profit, hyper-capitalist sort of corporation. They make a lot of money doing what they do, and they have really no interest in lowering the costs or the fees or anything like that. That's their nature. I would say it's more of a Bezo, Jeff Bezos sort of nature, but that's how they see it.
So you don't see them kind of improve. Well, of course they're going to improve their product in terms of the services they provide and that kind of thing, just because it's what the company does. But you don't see them trying to compete later on with Microsoft, even though they own majority of the market share already. Try to keep their dominance.
They own majority of market share doing what they do, but Microsoft does a lot more because Microsoft owns Windows and Microsoft
Right.
owns Office 365. So there is no real reason. There is no real way for Amazon to compete against that because they don't own Microsoft Windows. They don't have that. They have Linux, but they don't. No one really needs Linux in that regard for desktop, right? If you're a
Right.
traditional 500 company, like Bank of America, and you just want to get yourself into the cloud, but you want to maintain your posture and your ease of use, then what happens here is Microsoft looks very attractive because I have 10,000 computers that have Windows. I have servers that use Windows. Microsoft is a Windows provider, service provider, and they have a cloud infrastructure that matches and tailors to what I have traditionally, and all I have to do is move a few mouse clicks, and I'm up and going. So that's the way how they see it.
Hmm. I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Uh, as their version of Excel and these Office products, such as Windows and so forth,
Mhm.
can Google make a move to uh, gain some of that cloud dominance?
They already have. A lot of people use Google Enterprise, um,
Yes, yes.
and Google Docs and
Yeah,
Google
right, right.
all that stuff. That stuff gets used a lot in schools because it's cheap. They don't have to buy into Microsoft, right? So a Microsoft license is very expensive if you're a school. I don't care what kind of school you are. It's expensive because you have a whole lot of seats you have to pay for. Um, and the thing about Amazon is that Amazon doesn't offer that. Amazon just offers the infrastructure mostly that, which is what is attractive to a lot of customers and clients. They like the infrastructure. They like the reliability and the reputation that Amazon has. But Microsoft is a Windows shop, so they offer so many things that you traditionally had before that it's just really enticing for them to come over there. It's kind of like it's kind of like if Cadillac started offering an electric Escalade, it's hard to turn it down if you've already been a Cadillac customer. Now you could easily go out and buy a Tesla Model X with the gull wing doors,
Hmm.
or you can go out and or you can wait till Cadillac offers you an electric Escalade. And for a lot of Cadillac customers, the Escalade with an EV battery or EV motor does sound really attractive, and they'll wait for it if they can.
Okay. Now, can we see a situation, because I'm looking at Google as having a piece of both Amazon and Microsoft offers. Amazon, like you said, offers the structure of the cloud, and Microsoft with Azure, they offer the traditional products that you as a person and businesses, and the example you use was Bank of America. They offer what we're used to, but they're putting that to the cloud. Now with Google, they have the Google Docs, they have and they have the email. Can you see Google offering some of what offering both some of what Amazon and Microsoft has, putting that together and offering a cloud service?
They already do. They call it GCP, Google Cloud Platform.
Okay.
The only problem is that people are used to using Microsoft Office, don't want to move to Google Docs. People who
Yeah.
have not used Microsoft Office are okay with using Google Docs because they don't know any better.
Okay.
So Google makes out really well pushing these cheap services down to you. Now, if you're a big enterprise, then you're afraid of using Google because of Gmail. We don't like Gmail. We like professional. We like professional things. It has to be professionally branded, and Gmail doesn't sound secure to the Federal Reserve or Bank of America or J.P. Morgan. That doesn't sound secure. That doesn't make me feel good if I'm a corporate exec.
Okay. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, there's a lot of perception in all of that. So
So what about Microsoft? Does Microsoft offers that in terms of email that sounds professional, or does Microsoft lets the company to allows the company at on their own email?
They offer Office 365. So basically, you're getting Microsoft Outlook in the cloud.
All right, at Outlook. Yeah, okay, Outlook. Okay,
Yep.
yes, Outlook does. Outlook is more professional than Gmail. It's more beefier than Google Docs. Google Docs is a watered down version of Microsoft. Uh,
Well, not necessarily beefier, but more shinier. It's the GUI that people like. People are used to using the GUI and they trust the GUI. It's kind of like
okay.
people who use iPhone have a hard time giving up the iPhone because they can't adjust to Android's interface.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Okay,
really difficult. It's a difficult transition for them.
okay.
Yeah, I
I
think it
understand that.
definitely is the psychology because Microsoft is definitely their email service is a lot more complicated than Gmail, at least in my opinion.
Hmm.
You said
At
it's
least,
like you said their email service is what again?
at least to me, it's more complicated. At least the ones we use at work, it's too much stuff. So I guess if you kind of, I don't want to say grew up in it, but you using it for a long time, it doesn't matter so much to you. But for
Yeah,
me, it was like fresh.
Hmm.
It takes it's a learning curve,
I agree.
and yeah,
I I agree with that because I have a Microsoft email and they changed it 3 times within the last I want to say year and a half, and it just got more complicated. Uh, uh, Compare that to Gmail,
Hmm.
it's just simple. And albeit I don't use all of Gmail's um, uh, um,
Services.
right, but look at things. It's just more. It's just simpler
Hmm.
compared to Microsoft email. It's complicated. As long, but like you said, anti gravity. If you grew up with it, if you use it for a long time, then it's not as complicated. But if a person now makes the email and MSN, Microsoft, then it's a deterrent.
Hmm. Yeah. That's how a lot of guys make find their positions in IT is because Microsoft has these many different tracks for these many different services that they provide. So Exchange, which is Microsoft's corporate email, Office 365, which is basically Outlook in the cloud, um, and then you have Windows Server, Windows Desktop, all those all of those features and services all have certification tracks, and that's what pays a lot of bills for a lot of guys. So
Hmm.
um,
My bad. Yeah, but
all right,
yeah, I agree. I agree.
yeah, we'll move on to the next article. All right, this one is from GitLab.com. GitLab just announced GitLab serverless. So let me read the description. Serverless is the latest innovation in cloud computing that promises to alter the cost-benefit equation for enterprises. As our CEO, Sib Sabrandes says, all roads lead to compute. There is a race among providers to acquire as many workloads from enterprises as possible at the cheapest cost. The latter is where serverless comes in. Serverless computing is an execution model in which the cloud provider acts as a server, dynamically managing the allocation of the machine resources. Pricing is based on actual resource consumed by an application rather than on pre-purchased units of capacity. The field began with the release of AMD AWS Lambda in 2014. In the 4 short years since then, it has become a well-known workflow that enterprises are eager to adopt. Today, we are announcing GitLab Serverless to enable our users to take advantage of the benefits of serverless. GitLab Serverless is launching December 22nd. So it launched over the weekend. Um, what people need to understand about serverless computing is that you don't have to set up servers anymore. Basically, if you go write code, then what you do is you send the code off to AWS Lambda or whatever the application is, and the cloud provider is gonna do all the rest of the work for you. It's gonna scale up the CPUs. It's gonna give you more bandwidth automatically. All this stuff takes place in the background without you actually having to set up anything. So it takes all of the labor aspect out of the equation for you. So now you don't need to know how to set up a server. You just write code and you send it off, and the compute environment does all the rest of the work for you.
Now, question: is this what we were? Is this the same thing we were talking about Friday with
Saturday?
Yeah, Saturday on TechCrunch.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. And we mentioned how this is a natural evolution, whereas in the beginning coding was tedious and things of that nature. I'm forgetting words tonight. But now, as years pass, decades pass, people are going to find a way to make it simpler in order to streamline the um, uh, uh, things on in terms of what code can do.
Right, and that's why we talk about black people learning how to code, learn how to code in Python, learn how to code in C Sharp, Java, JavaScript, Go, which is Go, and C++. If you can learn how to code in those languages, then that makes it easier for you to actually spin up different applications as well as different cryptocurrencies, because cryptocurrencies use code too. So you can spin up different types of tokens and whatnot on the fly, push it to the cloud environment. The cloud does it all for you in the background, and then you get a result at the end. You get a receipt at the end, and you only pay for what you provide. So if you're providing 1,000 lines of code, you're only paying a few bucks to actually spin it up.
Right there is very useful, because as of now, if say a person don't know how to code but they want to create a product, they will have to hire someone, and that price comes with other costs, or that cost comes with other costs in term compared to if you know how to code, you send this code off to somewhere else and it builds the app that you are trying to build, and from there you can do little tweaks here, little tweaks there, in order to really get what you want in a short amount of time, compared to having to look through the lines of code and tweaking this, tweaking that, and see if it comes out. It's less tedious and it's more, like I said, streamlined.
Yeah, that's where your QA specialist comes in. Your quality assurance person comes in and overlooks the code. That's their job.
So with more serverless, companies, well, where do you think the fight is going to go then? Is it where it goes back to AWS versus Azure?
No,
And
no, it's more about what you're already. It's more about what you're already comfortable with. So if you're a Windows shop, you're just gonna go back to Azure anyways, because that's your platform. If you don't have an account with them, then yeah, you'll go find another resource. But if you're already a Microsoft customer, you're gonna go back to Microsoft. If you're an Amazon customer, you're gonna go back to Amazon. You kind of stay within your brand contingent, for that matter. Like if you buy a Honda, you're only gonna buy Honda parts. You're not gonna go down to AutoZone and go get some off the shelf parts, because it's no benefit to you at that point, unless the car's out of warranty.
Right. Well, what about markets that don't really have any? And then Amazon and Microsoft don't have market share. Like, for example, in Africa, who do you see can be able to come in and dominate that market?
Microsoft is already in Africa right now, So they're slowly growing, but they're there. They there is no cloud service provider or Azure like anything like that because Africa doesn't have infrastructure in place. They need fiber optic cable in place in order to really pump massive amounts of data to fire up a cloud provider. They just don't have that. So right now, Africa is in a bit of a cumbersome place where everybody has all of these mobile phones and tablets, but they don't have physical wire in the ground. They just have wireless access. So there's free Wi-Fi here at this place and that place, and 4G here and 3G there, and satellite providers, but nothing really tangible on the ground for a big physical cloud provider to really pump data down. So they have to figure that out first, and you'll probably see more of that come around by 2022.
Mhm.
But Microsoft, Africa is actually open for business when it comes to cloud computing, which is something they desperately need. Um,
Mhm.
there's all types of ways of burying data centers and containers underneath the sand because underneath the sand is a lot cooler, so you need
Right.
less energy to actually cool a data center down. Um, you could throw it in the ocean, like we've seen before. Microsoft testing
Hmm.
submarine-based data centers, just drop it in the ocean and let it cool itself by the water. Um, so there's all types of opportunity that's going to come out of Africa in the next year and a half, the next 12 months.
Yeah, it's wide open. It's a gold rush of some sorts right now because, like you said, they don't have that total full infrastructure to deal with that mass amount of data. And Africa itself is a large continent. I don't think people really realize how large it is. If you just take a look at the Peterson's projection map, building that infrastructure one will it's critical, and there's a lot of jobs and not really jobs and opportunities for you to create a business around building the infrastructure itself. And then once you build the infrastructure, you get other businesses, major businesses will have to tailor it to themselves. So there's opportunity there, but it's just getting that mass, creating that mass infrastructure.
Right, and you have to factor in the average user, right? So let's say Africa has a million users on high performance smartphones and tablets. The average user probably pulls maybe about a gig of data a month, right? Or a gig of data every 30 days. Well, you multiply that times a million people, and now you're talking about terabytes of data that need to be pumped out. How are you going to pump that data out, and where does it go? How do you store it? How do you manage it? That's where data scientists come in, data architects, um, more wireless infrastructure, more wired infrastructure, more coding needs to come in place so you can manage all these applications that need to be deployed for all these people, with these devices that need to buy things and things of that nature, and to fully get the full functionality of their computing in their hands.
Agreed. Agreed. It's some good conversation so far tonight.
All right, let's move on to the next article.
I'm on speakerphone here, so people may think I'm some C-suite CEO of a business having a conference call.
All right, they may will you out of there. All right. Next article is from WashingtonPost.com. How a court battle between Amazon and Oracle could shape the Pentagon's cloud computing. Global tech giants Oracle and Amazon have fired off early salvos in what is likely to become a protracted court battle over how the Pentagon should build advanced cloud computing technology into its operations. The latest turn in long-running dispute over the biggest military IT procurement in years. In a bid protest filed recently in the U.S. Court of Federal Claims, Oracle argued the Defense Department's $10 billion cloud computing contract, known as the Joint Enterprise Defense Infrastructure, or JEDI for short, has improperly favored Amazon Web Services, the cloud computing unit of Amazon.com. Days later, Amazon intervened on the side of the government, filing a motion to make itself a defendant in the case. Amazon founder Jeffrey P. Bezos also owns the Washington Post, which we're reading right now. The lawsuit the lawsuit comes just weeks after the Government Accountability Office ruled against an earlier bid protest by Oracle, which had taken issue with Pentagon's approach. Oracle is trying to undo a Pentagon decision to turn to a single cloud computing provider for the JEDI contract, meant to enable new weapons capabilities that employ artificial intelligence algorithms. The JEDI cloud effort is estimated to have $10 billion value over 10 years, and officials have said it will account for about 16% of the department's overall cloud computing work. The contract is part of the broader efforts to build advanced artificial intelligence algorithms into Pentagon's operations and weapons systems, which is seen as pivotal to U.S. military's ability to maintain technological dominance over China and Russia. So I don't want to read the whole article because I think we got the message. This is where we are. Yeah, Paul Bryan's right. Skynet.
Okay, quick question. Now, I understand this is between Amazon and Oracle. Who offers the best services for Amazon?
What do you mean?
I mean, no. I said that wrong. I don't know why I said Amazon. I said that wrong.
The Pentagon, you mean?
Yeah, the Pentagon. What was I thinking? Golly. Yeah, between Amazon and Oracle.
Depends on what their needs are. I don't know. I don't know exactly. I mean, outside of artificial intelligence, they have other needs, and what it sounds like to me is that Amazon is getting away with. Amazon is basically getting away with robbing the robbing the federal government of valuable resources, financial resources, I should say.
Now, according to the article, well, not according to the article, I know the government is notorious for overpaying for things. I understand depending on what the government needs, or in this case, the Pentagon. Again, who's able to? I understand, they'll do things according to what the government needs, but who's able to make that change or be more of a Swiss Army knife in terms of, hey, the Pentagon saying, I know we said we needed this one year, but then next year it's saying, hey, things have changed, the field have changed, we need this. So who's nimble enough to make that switch and to offer the government?
It's basically a cyber arms contract, and just like Lockheed is responsible for the F-35. You're not going to turn the F-35 project over to Boeing. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
You're already locked into it now. You gotta cough up the money.
Right.
The problem with Amazon is that they're too big in this regard, and I can see where Oracle is coming from. That it's not fair that Amazon they own the Washington Post, and they have the majority of they're putting retail businesses. They're putting retail businesses out of business.
Oh, my bad. Let me mute myself.
Yeah. They're putting retail brick and mortar businesses out of business, and then you factor in that they just now got a government contract worth over $600 million, $10 billion over 10 years.
Yeah,
that's not. That's just ridiculous. For a technology company to have that sort of position. Now, I think Google originally had the contract, and then I think kind of backed out of it.
Now, okay, in that case, Oracle is correct, because how are you the government when on one end Amazon gets too big and you're forced to break them up like they did at Microsoft, but you give them this contract knowing that they're putting other businesses, really a lot of businesses out of business, and you give them this contract. So I understand what Oracle is saying.
Yeah, and all this money goes back to Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos makes more in an hour than most African Americans see in a lifetime.
He make a lot of money.
Makes $186,000 a minute.
And on top of that, And on top of that, he's doing this Blue Origin. There's no telling what. Okay, right now, Blue Origin is what a just a space taxi for people that want to see space.
Yes.
He can change that and say, hey, you know what? It's not going too well. I got enough money to go mine asteroids. This guy has the opportunity to be extremely wealthy.
Right.
And go
He's
ahead.
doing it on the taxpayer's dime.
Right.
He's basically a monopolist. So he's trying to monopolize, the cyber fields for the government. So take over all of it, starting with the Pentagon.
Yeah, and I don't buy anything from Amazon. I'll go somewhere else and buy a book or something like that. I just don't. I'm not supporting it. That's my BS.
Really?
Yeah, I don't buy anything from Amazon.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, originally you're right. It was Google was supposed to do it, but because of the AI and the kind of the weaponizing of AI, there was a lot of pressure put on Google by its own employees, outside people, their consumers that they don't want them doing it. But Jeff Bezos, if there's money in it, he has no problem building AI weapons.
Hmm. Just as a reminder, I mean, the article discusses $10 billion. I mean, that's just for one contract. So you imagine how many other contracts and stuff that cloud service providers are going to be receiving in the next year or so. There's money to be made out of the cloud computing market. So, all right, this next one is from ZDNet.com. How one hacked laptop led to an entire network being compromised. One worker clicking on the wrong link at the wrong time resulted in a major security breach. A corporate laptop used in a coffee shop at the weekend was enough to allow a sophisticated cyber crime group to compromise an organization's entire infrastructure. The incident was detailed by cybersecurity firm CrowdStrike as part of Cyber Intrusion Services Casebook 2018 report, and serves as a reminder that laptops and other devices that are secure while running inside the network of an organization can be left exposed when outside of company walls. CrowdStrike described the company that fell victim to the hackers only as a apparel manufacturer with an extensive global presence, including retail locations. The incident began when an employee of a manufacturer took their laptop to a coffee shop and used it to visit the website of one of the firm's partners. The security researchers said the user visited the site after being directed there by a phishing email, and that the site had been compromised by fake updates, a malware and social engineering campaign affecting thousands of Joomla and WordPress sites. The malware shows users pop-ups which claim their browsers needs a software updating in the instance. The laptop was then infected with Drydex banking Trojan and the PowerShell Empire post-exploit toolset. The security software being used by the closing company, CrowdStrike didn't name the vendor, relied on devices being inside the corporate network to pick up the threats. As the laptop was being used outside the network, the incident didn't become apparent until the laptop was back in the office, by which time it was too late. The affected laptop then served as an entry point for attackers to compromise the corporate network, allowing the attackers to use PowerShell exploits to access dozens of systems that could be compromised by taking advantage of their users' permissions. The attackers were also able to gather additional privileged account credentials by using Mimikatz, an open source utility used to retrieve clear from memory to gain access from servers and further move across the network. It's called a lateral attack. Local administrative privileges made it easier for the threat actor to access a multitude of endpoints by accessing just one account that linked them all. Once access to the domain was gained, it left the organization completely exposed. Brian York, director of professional services at CrowdStrike, told ZDNet. So Oh, let me read this one last quote. The exposure allowed the attackers to install framework point of sales malware on the retail store server with the intention of stealing credit card data. Um, this is this is what I do for a living, but it's important that you don't. If you're going to use a laptop, always use a VPN connection. Um, Also, don't use public Wi-Fi for your corporate dealings. Um, it's just not a wise solution. I mean, if you're using Windows, you can be compromised. If you're using Macs, you can be compromised. Um, it doesn't make any sense to put your company at risk using free Wi-Fi. If it's free for a reason because it's pretty vulnerable. Um, I personally use my smartphone as a hotspot, and that's how I connect back into my workplace. Um, it's secure. It's on VPN. No one can get into it, at least not immediately. And if they do try, I can see it pop up on my phone. So I'm pretty insulated from the rest of the environment, despite the fact that I'm in public. So
That's good. Yeah, I remember you talking about that, how guys on their computers, office computers or laptops, and they just don't really, well, they really don't care about their office laptops, and they go to these coffee shops, which is, I mean, if I was a hacker, it's the first place I would go. These coffee uh, shops that have free Wi-Fi and allow you to just sit down upon hours, such as Starbucks, Panera Bread, places like this, and guys would be more careful, but upon further hearing, they don't, they just think, oh, I can't be hacked. I'm invisible. Nobody's gonna hack my computer. So as soon as they think that, that's when they get hacked. Now the way they did this was it's not really ingenious. They just took advantage of that a person just clicking on emails. Now, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say it's a phishing email, so that means it was targeted.
Okay, to that person.
To that environment. So when you send out a phishing email, you're hoping that somebody in the environment actually clicks on it. Usually, if you have the right sort of countermeasures installed, it would catch that phishing email because the domain would show up as bad. However, that person was not connected to the environment, so um, they weren't able to use their countermeasures. So you have a machine that is exposed to the environment. It's basically exposed to the environment. So they were able to compromise him that way. Had he been in an environment, or had that person been in the environment, that wouldn't have happened.
So when you say environment, you mean
Office
or a business or a financial district.
Corporate office. So your corporate office is your workplace environment.
Okay. Now, it as you was reading it and just and explaining everything, it makes me think, as cryptocurrencies become more and more adopted, and people are becoming their own banks, so forth and so forth, they're going to keep their wallets on, and a lot of wallets have Bitcoin code in them. There are a fork of Bitcoin, so they're vulnerable to the same forks or same malware as Bitcoin. So, do you foresee a future where these malware attacks can attack wallets?
Yes,
Mm.
they'll brute force attack the wallet to get their way in. Um, Usually, humans are very lazy.
Yes.
Your brain can only hold so much information, so you try to keep the same password across all different types of accounts,
Yes.
and that's just the nature. I mean, the article describes that they used a open source tool that looks for clear text passwords, and unfortunately, they were using an account that or an application that had clear text passwords typed in, and they was able to capture that in real time while it's in memory. It's in memory space. So as long as the laptop is running, it's in memory space. Once you grab the password out of the memory space to clear text, you hold that and then you apply it while the laptop is still running, while the user is still in a live state.
Okay. People tell you to encrypt your wallet, meaning put a password on it. And there's some places that'll tell you, hey, make sure your password is not confusing, but long enough, got enough characters.
Complex.
Right, complex.
Complex by design.
I like that. I like that. And they tell you this, but are lazy. Just like when Kanye went to the White House, they got his password to his phone. It was what 99999 was 00000. Right. So, I mean, come on. Like, did you? Oh, so I foresee in terms of wallets, these wallets, and I don't mean to get too far off base. I'm bring it back. That when you make an account with a lot of some websites or make an account with, they tell you your password must be or must have this. It must be this long, must have these type of characters, numbers, capital letter, lower letter. So I foresee wallets having that type of restriction on them, saying, hey, before you go any further, encrypt your wallet. So to tie it all back, do corporations tell people that have access to that company's database, that company's centralized database, hey, we're going to sit here and we're going to make a password that incorporate these letters, numbers, so forth and so forth, instead of letting the people who have access to these centralized databases go walk away and make a password or not make a password. If they do, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 password.
Well, so in the article, again, I refer back to the article, but most corporate environments are MFA, multi-factor authentication. So you're using more than one complex entry to get in. So you have your password, and then you have a rotating key, or you're using a passphrase, which you know, or you're using some form of biometrics. So that's multi-factor authentication. Now, in this regard to the article, to this incident, this threat actor or these threat actors, because I believe there was more than one person that attacked that whole entire platform, they made a lateral move. So it had really nothing to do with the user, the guy or the person who got compromised. It was more that they were able to make what they call a lateral move, meaning they went from his laptop to somewhere else in the environment, and then they went somewhere else beyond his laptop, beyond his position.
Okay.
And because they didn't patch anywhere in their environment, they were left vulnerable too. So more than likely,
this kind of reason.
More than likely, this person utilized the same password for their laptop that they use for their other accounts in their email and everything else, so it left everything exposed.
So is this why
you were breaking up, Anti? Anti-gravity, can you hear? You are breaking up real bad.
Mayday.
Can you hear me?
Mayday.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what about now? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Do you think this is kind of why they don't allow a lot of work from home or remote work for their employees, just to prevent things like this, or do you think that's more like company policies?
No, it has nothing to do with work from home, because when you work from home, you're kind of in a secure environment, right? You're on your own private internet because you're not publicly broadcasting. And plus, you're on the VPN, so you're connecting right back into the office. So it's a little different. They don't want you using it at Starbucks. You want to have a coffee? Fine. You want to have a donut? Fine. But to use your laptop, we don't recommend that.
Mm.
There's no real reason for you to use public Wi-Fi when you have a smartphone. Every smartphone has smart hotspot capabilities, and if you don't have a hotspot, most corporations will have a corporate account with Sprint, AT&T, Verizon. They can provide you a hotspot. If you're a traveling salesperson, if you're a traveling consultant, then that's what you would do. For whatever reason, this person decided to use, um, public Wi-Fi inside of a damn coffee shop. The coffee must have been real good.
That Starbucks coffee. That's disgusting.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. A $3 or $4 coffee costing millions of dollars.
Mm. Yeah.
All right, we'll move on to the next article. All right. Actually, what's Vic Shepard is asking, why is he using a company computer at a store? It beats the hell out of me. Maybe he had a some people like to get out of the office and just roam about. I mean, that's the kind of culture that some places have where they allow you to move about like that. But he must have been waiting for somebody or doing something that required him to be there. So, all right, this one is from CNBC.com. Criminals are using a new form of identity theft, stealing business data. Business identity theft was up 46% year over year in 2017, according to Dun and Bradstreet. At stake are business brand, reputation, and trade secrets. One recent case cost the company $1 billion in market share and hundreds of jobs, according to the FBI. Usually, if you're compromised by a foreign actor, you have to contact DHS. Most people are familiar with identity theft, which happens when someone pretends to be someone else to make purchases, apply for credit, or even get their tax refund. However, an increasing number of criminals are doing the same thing, but stealing business data. Business identity theft was up 46% year over year in 2017, the latest numbers available, according to data and analytics company Dun and Bradstreet. Cyber criminals actually take on their client lists or their special sauce that makes that company operate and compete with them directly. In other instances, they are pretending to be that business. Stephen Shapiro, a unit chief at the FBI, told CNBC in a recent interview. At stake are businesses' brands, reputation, and trade secrets. One recent case cost the company $1 billion in market share and hundreds of jobs, according to the FBI. Criminals have a perception that it's easier to find a business data than it is for individuals. There are also perception that businesses have deeper pockets than the individuals would in an identity theft situation. Any business could be at risk, according to Brian Visici, a technical evangelist at Varonis, which specializes in data protection. A lot of the information that you would need to impersonate a business is publicly available, Visici told CNBC, including names of corporate officers, email addresses, and phone numbers. In addition, the threat came from the inside, he added. Insiders are incredibly difficult to protect against. First of all, they know more about your organization. If they really want to do some damage, they can do it very quickly and very efficiently, Visici said. To protect yourself, Visici said data should be restricted only to workers who need it. and advise companies to cut off employees when they leave the firm. They should also keep a close eye on credit reports, bank accounts, social media, and web searches, he added. If you believe you are a victim of business identity theft, report it to the FBI. So it's a new tactic, but it's an old strategy. Um, you guys have anything you want to add to this?
Yeah. This sounds like this can be for the attackers. They can use this in multiple ways, depending on the business that they hack or steal data from, business data from. They can steal their cost them money, and B, if they have user information on their systems, they can then take that user information and sell it, use it to identity theft. So to me, this can hurt a business in so many ways, well, in more than one way.
Anti-gravity?
I'm more wondering why they're calling it new. Is it new because it's up more? At least from what I understand, I thought hackers were always doing this.
They were going after
But
the individual and not the business itself.
Mm.
oh, so individuals in the business.
Right. They were going after the individual, but an individual, doesn't always have the deep wallets. It's the corporation that does. So you want to go after the corporation business data and actually get a whole pool of people. What they call um what's the cybersecurity term for that? Water holing. So basically, animals go to a central location where water is to stick their nose in and get water. And you see this a lot in Africa, where a crocodile will pull a water buffalo in or something like that into the water as they go in there and try to sip.
Okay.
All right, we'll move on to the next article.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff.
All right, this one is from Bitcoinist.com. 4 blockchain-based projects which solve real-world issues. From autonomous robots to wealth management, here are 4 promising startups at the end of 2018. ICO projects with no real use are just not attractive to investors anymore. According to ICO data, $150 million was raised through the month of October 2018 in token sales. That's a substantial decline from $1.5 billion raised in January the same year. The blockchain space is getting to the point where there's a ceiling in sight, claims Ethereum co-founder Vitalik Buterin. He seems to be a real familiar guy. According
Yeah.
to him, the next step will involve real applications of real economic activity. Regardless of the statements, as well as the hopes that the last part of 2018 will bring in a return to practicality, it's quite challenging for projects to stray away from the information noise. Hence, we've decided to pick out 4 notable blockchain-based projects which are yet to gain momentum in the media despite providing solutions to actual issues. Robonomics Network. Problem: the ever-increasing complexity of supply chains production as well as urban life, which is getting harder to handle. Solution: enable users to order goods as well as services from autonomous robots which work hand in hand with each other. That's interesting. CycleBit. Problem: limited capability to spend digital currency in everyday life limits the growth of the entire industry. Solution: to enable stores as well as cafes to become merchants of cryptocurrencies.
Mm-hmm.
IOTW. Problem: point of sales and proof of work. I want to say that's proof of work. Point of sales and proof of stake and proof of work algorithms hinder micro mining and suffer from centralization. Solution: use the proof of assignment algorithm to make mining possible on IoT devices.
Mm.
Trustverse. Problem: existing wealth management services fail to use blockchain because of the low trust environment of the cryptocurrency field. Solution: enable users to manage their wealth using blockchain-based platforms, deep learning, and AI. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, it
You have
is.
anything? You have anything you want to add to this, Lino?
Yeah, I agree with what they're saying. Last year, going bleeding into this year, ICOs were all the rage because of last year's bull market toward fourth quarter last year. People were saying, "Hey, invest in ICOs. They're getting a lot of money, getting billions of dollars." And people were making money. People were investing. They were seeing their money 10x and so forth. Now with this year-long bear market, that's not ICOs aren't sexy anymore. Now the people that have been in a space long enough, especially since last year, are doing exactly what this article is saying they're doing. They're looking for use cases. They're looking for projects that actually solve a problem instead of throwing their money at projects with a sexy name. Now, with the four um, projects that are, I'm trying to go down these ads killing me. Like, so I want to. Okay, IO is it?
IOTW,
Yeah, was that the one with proof of?
proof of stake, proof of work,
Right now,
proof of assignment.
right. They're right. It can become centralized. Proof of work is becoming centralized, and proof of stake can become centralized because if you hold shares of a crypto, then that network is biased towards you create forging blocks. So if I hold like 25,000 IOTW and you hold 10, it's going to be biased toward me and bless me with the capabilities of more than you. So yes, they can become centralized because only thing institution has to do, like Fidelity, is come in and buy up a large number, and now they're being rewarded more than retailers. So I agree with that. With the other one, in terms of the um, point of sale transactions, that is what crypto needs to become more adopted. More merchants need to be able to say, "Hey, we accept um, these other cryptocurrencies that you can come in and buy a latte, or a buttered croissant. So yes, I agree.
Yeah, to build off right now, the biggest problem is stability. I think in the cryptocurrency sphere, Bitcoin is no longer going to be you know as central as it was the past 2 years. So it'll be interesting to see what solution will come out.
Hmm. Now, oh, go ahead, go ahead. Hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, um, a couple of weeks ago, I sent out an email saying how China has the capabilities to destroy Bitcoin, and that's because the mining power is 60% in China, which means they're holding all these computers that is brute forcing finding these hashes to put blocks on Bitcoin blockchain. Now, what will have to happen is the proof of work is just a consensus algorithm. So the uh, what will have to happen is they will have to change Bitcoin's consensus algorithm. The article mentioned proof of assignment. There's other consensus algorithms out there that would make Bitcoin more decentralized than right now. It's being more centralized. So it's just changing the code to update. Right now is archaic compared to other cryptos that's coming out now. So they will have to update the code to make it more up to date.
All right. Move on to the next article. This next one is from theatlantic.com. 7 arguments against the autonomous vehicle utopia. All the ways the self-driving future won't come to pass. Self-driving cars are coming. Tech giants such as Uber and Alphabet have bet on it, as have old school car manufacturers such as Ford and General Motors. But even as Google's sister company Waymo prepares to launch its self-driving car service, and automakers prototype vehicles with various levels of artificial intelligence, there are some who believe that the autonomous future has been oversold. That even if driverless cars are coming, it won't be as fast or as smooth as we've been led to think. The skeptics come from different disciplines inside and out of the technology and automotive industries, and each has a different bear case against self-driving cars. Add them up, and you have a guide to all the ways of autonomous vehicles might not materialize. Bear case 1: they won't work until cars are as smart as humans. Um, let me skip past this advertisement. 2, bear case 2: they won't work because they'll get hacked. Security issue. Bear case 3: they won't work as transportation service. Bear case 4: they won't work because you can't prove they are safe. Bear case 5: they'll work, but not anytime soon. Bear case 6: self-driving cars will mostly mean computer-assisted drivers. Bear case 7: self-driving cars will work, but make traffic and emissions worse. What's your take on this anti-gravity?
I think the person who wrote this article is a hater. Was my first. was my first thought. I think the biggest hurdle to autonomous vehicles is would be government and then the people. So if there's some kind of mass movement by people saying they don't want it. Yeah, I see it. I guess at least being slowed down. But I've heard that Waymo and a lot of Lyft, Uber, they're working with federal regulators and transportation department to come up with new regulations to, kind of streamline it, along with insurance companies for a way that, they can get these onto the streets in larger numbers. I feel like it has to be something big, not just one person being killed, but some huge accident for that to be rolled back. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I know.
Well, I defer my knowledge about this subject to you all, especially and including complex. But from what I have learned listening to you all was the place. And I think it was last week we read articles where people were messing with the Waymo vehicles. The systems have to go more as the system learns more and are able to include those nuances into the system, into the learning system, the machine learning, the AI. As that learns more and more and more, autonomous driving will account for uh, snow on the stop sign. It'll account for people trying to merge at the last second. So outside of those two things, and the other one being infrastructure, I defer everything to you all.
No, this is just pessimism, right? Typical. I don't really know what's going on, so therefore I don't like it. That's really what it is. But let's recap their arguments. Bear case one: they won't work until cars are as smart as humans. Artificial intelligence, machine learning is only as good as the data that is fed to it. So the more data you feed to it, the smarter it's going to get. That's just the way how it goes. Bear case two: they won't work because they'll get hacked. Okay, cybersecurity. You'll have brute force attacks against machines. That's pretty common. Cars won't be cars anymore. They'll just be the Internet of Things. They'll be rolling smart devices. There's mitigations in place to handle cyber attacks against a autonomous vehicle. Bear case three: they won't work as transportation. They won't work as a transportation service. That's left to be seen. I mean, we really have not. We haven't seen them put into action only until recently. Waymo has put their vehicles on the road, so that's left to be seen. Bear case four: they won't work because you can't prove they are safe. Well, that's funny because all these people who who have these high accident rates because of the drinking and driving. Do you think they're taking those cars off the road now because humans are incapable of managing these vehicles? No, they keep the cars on the road and they keep these people with their licenses if they manage to make it out alive. So to say that they won't work because you can't prove they are safe, you can't prove that these cars are safe either. I mean, there's some Ford vehicles that have low crash safety ratings. I think it's like maybe the Ford Fiesta or something like that, or maybe like the Mitsubishi Mirage. I mean, these things are beer cans. They crush up as soon as you even touch something. So proving that they have to be safe, I just don't buy that. They'll work, but not anytime soon. Okay.
This you said something before you said your eloquent speech there. You said this sounds like a guy that don't know what's going on. that oh, so he's just making up stuff. This sounds like anti-gravity's favorite economist, Paul Krugman. When we read that article a while ago, that he said, well, crypto won't work because they don't have a government behind them with guns and tanks to make people use it.
Right, exactly.
Okay. Bear case six: self-driving cars will mostly mean computer-assisted drivers. You have that now. If you own a Tesla, if you own a Nissan Leaf or any sort of electric vehicle, they have computer-assisted driving. For the most part, cruise control is computer-assisted driving.
So is park assist and a lot of the other features modern cars now have that aren't even electric.
Yeah. GPS. I mean, throw your GPS out the window if you don't want, computer-assisted driving. Last case is beer case 7. Self-driving cars will work, but make traffic and emissions worse. I don't see how. If you're dealing with an electric vehicle, I don't see how it can be making it worse.
Like, for the person who wrote this article, if they really, I guess, a constructive negative case for this would be we should be focusing on having more public transportation instead of having electric vehicles. I think that would be a better case that they could make. But for this one, they're just more kind of like Luddites, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
They are Luddites. Yes, they are. Oh, that's funny. Instead of physically destroying stuff, they're writing articles saying, no, this is not going to work, and here's why.
Right, right.
All right, this next.
Well,
All right,
actually, I
next.
want to say one more thing. Do you guys know if the government will really make push for the infrastructure needed for self-driving cars? Because most of the America's infrastructure is in tatters as is. Well, what do you guys think about that?
I think that they'll do it when they see other governments, other countries surpassing them in a major way.
I missed the question. What was the question?
Oh, my question is basically since for the rollout of self-driving cars, it's going to take a huge infrastructure investment. Do you see the U.S. government taking that action, considering how bad the infrastructure is in the United States currently?
Well, they already have in a way. I mean, if you look at a lot of your street, your urban street development, you'll see like the bike lanes and things like that taking place. That's a part of infrastructure development. Now, if you're talking about filling potholes and things like that, that's more of an act of Mother Nature than anything else. So you're going to get potholes regardless of what country you're in or what your budget is. It's just a matter of how you go about filling it. So,
Well, not so much the potholes, but at least to me, when I see like the advancement of self-driving cars, the whole roadway system and the country is going to have to change. Kind of like in the 1950s when they first started laying down the cross-country
Eisenhower,
highways.
yeah, the Eisenhower highway system. Um,
Right. Something similar to that. You know what I mean?
yeah, they're gonna need the DOT and the National Highway of Transportation and Safety Association to actually get involved in that. My understanding is that they've already designed out and put out and drafted the framework for vehicle to vehicle communication. So that's something that they've already started a few years ago. So the draft is already in place. So it's just a matter of car companies actually adopting it.
Hey, good evening, everyone.
Hey, what's going on?
Oh, none, none much, man. I mean, we're talking autonomous vehicles, so I had to jump on.
Mhm.
Uh, um, I don't know. I think that I kind of side with Noah on this one. I think the article is more of a hit piece more than anything. You have to look at the sum total of our technological development, particularly as it pertains to fourth industrial-based technologies, right? You can't get away from it, right? You got a 5G data rollout basically across the nation, and a lot of this stuff in terms of autonomous vehicles has to be hedged on a 5G platform. Some of the problems that we were seeing with regards to autonomous vehicles over the last few years had to do with things like data packet latency and things like that over 3 and 4G networks. Whereas with 5G networks, you very much have instantaneous data transfer. Now, couple that with machine learning. So that means that with one machine learns something, all the machines learn it. So the scale in which autonomous vehicles are going to learn the environment happens at a much rapid rate. Versus if you look at humans historically driving vehicles, even in 2019, we get into accidents all the goddamn time. So nothing has really changed in terms of the human interactions with vehicles. However, with autonomous vehicles, all you're looking at is basically an upgrade in data infrastructure, i.e., 5G. And next thing you know, you have vehicles being able to traverse all types of terrains and stuff like that with zero problems.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I also would think that 802.11.8x alpha alpha X-ray, that protocol, or that not that protocol, but that specification for wireless, for Wi-Fi, it's actually on par with 5G
Mm-hmm.
from a bandwidth perspective. So it pushes up to 3.5 gigabits per second, which is similar to what 5G pushes. Um,
What's that one called?
802.11, 802.11 AX, Alpha X-ray.
It's like the next version of our current Wi-Fi data structure.
Yep. Yep. So having Wi-Fi in vehicles like that makes it easier for those vehicles to communicate with each other on the highway. And I think we covered an article with Tesla actually designing Earth-based GPS by using vehicles adjacent to it for positioning modeling.
Yep. I mean, I'm sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that, and with that put in place, now you're talking about the machine learning that Complex was referring to earlier. That data that gets fed into it makes all other vehicles learn as well as the vehicle that's picking up the data. So now you have fast processing times, data, big data being managed and being spit out across a network, such as 5G or as 802.11 AX, that can allow vehicles to communicate with each other at a high rate of speed.
And Mike, the funny thing about that is I mean, we're talking autonomous vehicles, right? This is what we're discussing right now. But even on the platform that we're utilizing for the rideshare platform that we're going to be rolling out here, literally in 2019, in a matter of a week plus, it is capable of and I'm going to say capable. It performs machine learning, and we're talking about for scooters and e-bikes and stuff like that, right? So just imagine how robust an autonomous vehicle platform based on these technologies are going to be. If it's already being rolled out right now, we're already testing it for like vehicles that are human powered. Well, I mean, my general assumption, my logical assumption is going to state, well, for autonomous vehicles, it's going to be that much more robust. And in all truthfulness, we've already seen this. We've already seen the case studies where there was there was a self-driving Uber vehicle, I think it was in Arizona, and there was an accident where there was a fatality. But in looking at it, the autonomous vehicle wasn't at fault. It was the human.
Right. The human assistant pulled the wheel and pulled it into the pedestrian, opposite of what the autonomous vehicle wanted to go.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much. Computers are just going to be. I mean, not computers. Cars are going to be basically rolling computers at this point that can handle large amounts of processing data, all in milliseconds. You see NVIDIA with their AI chip for autonomous vehicles. Qualcomm, Intel, AMD in their Radeon processors, and cloud computing. We talked about serverless computing earlier, where you can pump code into a cloud computing infrastructure, and the cloud computing infrastructure does all the rest. It's kind of like putting the quarter inside of an arcade machine and getting to play 3 or 4 games at a time. So all this stuff is going to come about, and I think the pessimists are going to continue to write articles, and we're just going to continue to pull in bank. So
I was going to say that I think go ahead, Lionel. Go ahead.
I have a question.
Yes,
let's say 10, 20 years from now, where autonomous vehicles are on the road more, and they populate the road more and more and more in the future. Will there still be, for safety reasons, say the network goes down in a certain area, what the case may be, a need for gas-powered vehicles, man-driven vehicles?
no.
Nope.
So
it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant to need gas-powered vehicles, right? Because France and a couple of countries for the Paris Climate Accord has specified that by 2045 they're going to get rid of all of gas-based vehicles. You see right now in Paris, a lot of the yellow vest protests are talking about the spike in fuel for diesel vehicles after the French government told everybody that diesel vehicles were great, and they're so clean diesel, and you should buy one. And now they're going up on the fuel, right? And they're talking about getting rid of diesel-based vehicles, gas-based vehicles by 2025, right? So
Yeah,
now
I mean,
you don't have any choice but to get an electric vehicle.
I was gonna say
So
it's great, but it's still also subjective to the petrochemical industry and all of the instability with regards to those markets, right? Because we see what goes on. You know, anytime that there's some sort of large oil deposit that's been discovered right off the coast of you fill in the blank country, right? Next thing you know, there's you know, geopolitical unrest and all these sorts of things. Now, when is the last time you've ever heard of these types of things happening with the electricity markets? The only thing I can think to was back in 2000 when California had that whole
Oh, Enron.
instance of yeah with the rolling blackouts with
Yeah,
Enron, and that largely had to do with a blackmail type of shakedown with the governor at the time, Gray Davis. But you largely don't see that type of stuff with the electricity markets. You see it with the petrochemical markets.
all right, okay.
Yeah, Paul Bryant in the chat said something. On Saturday, Germany closed its last coal mine and made a state level push for renewable energy. There you go. They're complying with the Paris Climate Agreement.
It only makes sense.
All right, let's
All right.
let's get to the next article. All right, this next video is from Russia Insight. Russia's next revolution: robots to replace humans in the Russian mines. President Vladimir Putin meets with the CEO. We produce over 200,000 pounds, 200,000 tons of nickel, palladium, and platinum. Yep, see again, environmental regulations are toughening. You use palladium and platinum to make your catalytic converters.
What? I'll wait till the video's over.
Mm-hmm. It's not that long.
Okay. Well, my question is,
Yes.
what vehicle are they making catalytic converters out of palladium and platinum?
Just about all vehicles are made out of that.
So in Chicago, there's a people stealing catalytic converters from cars.
Mm-hmm.
Now you know why.
And they're selling this stuff. Oh my God, really?
Hey, look, check this out. There's a video that you guys can check out, right? There's this channel I'm subscribed to. This guy, it's a channel called Cody's Lab. Okay. One of the videos that he did, maybe it was like last year. So this dude he goes onto a highway, right? He goes off to the side of the highways, and he just takes a brush and he's just brushing up all of like the dirt and the dust and all of just all of the particulates and the matter that's on the side of the road.
Mm-hmm.
His whole intention of doing this was to mine platinum. So he gets this whole big, just a pile of like just road dust that's on the side of a highway, goes back to his lab, and he mines platinum. And guess what? He got platinum because over time in the catalytic converter, there's particulates that burn out,
Mm-hmm.
right? And all those particulates blow out into the air, then they settle down, and then they fall onto the road, and then they get brushed, they get blown off to the side. And this dude's a genius. He just took a little brush and he just scraped up this pile of dust off the side of the highway, and then he goes back and he renders it all down, and he got like just this nice little chunk of platinum out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And platinum is more expensive than gold per the video.
Yeah, because it's heavy.
Golly, so
Palladium is pretty expensive too.
So this guy.
Oh yeah.
So this guy is. I mean. Okay.
Lionel, let me say this real quick because I was at work. We were at work one day, and he had a big parking lot and whatnot. And this guy came in with one of these lifted trucks, one of these lifted F-150s or something like that.
Oh boy!
It was lifted so high that these guys drove around into the parking lot with hacksaws, got under the truck, and cut the catalytic converter right off of it, and made off in the middle of the daytime. And when the guy came out to go home for work, noticed that the car wouldn't stop because there's no catalytic converter.
And that catalytic converter must have been bigger than the average catalytic converter.
Yeah, for F-150, yeah, a lot bigger.
Yeah. They let it drop to the ground, they dragged it off and put it in the trunk of their car and took off.
Okay.
And people wonder why why they steal catalytic, because it's just what Mike said. There's palladium and platinum in them.
To be honest, I don't think everybody knows there's palladium and platinum, or else you'll be seeing on CNN, Fox, like, get rid of your cars earlier than 2000, whatever. They just want that money, but people are ingenious. Sometimes, a lot of times, people are dumb, but at the same time, they're ingenious. And sweeping the shoulder of a highway to mine this precious, basically for how much it costs to do it, is ingenious.
Well, Lionel, it's always been my thought that when you see those, so out here in California, it's called Caltrans, right? That's the contracted entity largely throughout the state of California that does all of the street sweeping and the road cleaning and all that, right? But it's all, but look, learning more about this stuff, like it kind of, I had to look at this through a new lens, and I'm like, wait, so are all these large street sweeping vehicles, are they doing just that? Are they literally just like, because all those things sweep the stuff up and it vacuums it up into a collector, and then the trucks go to some site. Now, who knows what happens with that stuff? But if this guy can mine, if this guy can mine palladium and platinum off the side of a road, well, who's to say that from a statewide standpoint, there isn't some sort of entity in place that does just that? And when I see these street sweepers and all that kind of stuff, I mean, I'm looking at it like, well, okay, dude, like that's a lot of money put into all this kind of stuff just to haphazardly, half-ass sweep these roads or whatever. But now that I really look at it with new eyes, I'm like, maybe what they're doing is just that. They're collecting palladium and platinum.
This is it's sort of funny. I got to give it to him.
Same here, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to take aluminum off the side of a house, and recycle that. But you start cutting people's catalytic converters off their cars. That's some gutsy stuff, man.
But hey, man, but Lionel, I'll tell you, dude, in Chicago, that's a big thing. Snatching cat converters, man.
Oof. All right, this next article is from Japlanic.com. Autonomous driving startup Zoox gets California's okay to offer rides to the public. That's a very bare bones vehicle. Silicon Valley autonomous driving startup Zoox applied for and has been the approved for autonomous driving on regular streets with regular people as passengers in the state of California. The company is not allowed to charge for the rides, and the vehicle must still have a technician in the driver's seat, ready to take over in an emergency case, according to a report by Automotive News. While the car Zooks will be using, while the car Zooks will be using won't look like the vaporware horseshit one test cars shown in the image above, and will instead be a traditional mass market car with technology added on. This marks the first time that California has allowed regular folks to ride in self-driving cars. Until now, passenger cars have been limited to employees in the self-driving sector, and occasionally, as the case with Zook's family members. The intent on putting Zook's driven cars on public streets with public passengers is kind of the same reason video games or apps get beta testing. Zook's hopes that with more cars on the roads providing service, it will get more user input and data to work with. The company is working on getting the software to give smoother inputs. Zooks is one of 62 companies with permits to test autonomous driving technology on public roads in California, says Automotive News. Those other 61 companies, including Alphabet-owned Waymo, are likely quite jealous of Zook's newfound autonomy. Waymo currently offers public autonomous rides in Arizona, where they are allowed to charge customers, but must also retain the driver in the action seat. In California, Waymo has recently been given a permit to test autonomous cars without a backup driver, obviously not including riders. While we are still a long way from being able to rely on ride-sharing apps to hail an autonomous car to give us a ride with no other driver input, this beta style test is a step on that path, still a very early step. So I don't know if I feel safe driving, being driven around in a vehicle like that, but it doesn't look like it costs a lot of money to build something like that.
Good God, what is that?
I thought that was Pacific Rides.
No, it's not Pacific Rides. That's a very rudimentary vehicle that they're using for testing, and I think they designed it that way because if I'm looking at the picture correctly, there's a lot of like LiDAR type sensors all around it, right? And yeah, so like the less obstruction you have, the more data well, number one, the more sensors you can put around it, and then the more data you can capture. That's why I think when you were reading the article, they were saying, okay, well, look, the actual vehicles that would be rolled out wouldn't look like this, but if they're using this for like machine learning purposes, then that means the most sensors they can put around it to capture the most data possible, that kind of gives them like sort of like a bump or a head start with regards to their fully enclosed vehicles. Those vehicles are going to run off of whatever data that vehicle collects.
Mm-hmm. Anti-gravity?
Oh, I don't have anything to add to this one.
Yeah, me neither. Y'all spoke for me.
All right.
Well, I'll just say further. There was an article, I think one or two articles prior, where you were talking that you were going over like the bear cases for this stuff, right? But in places like here in California, there really isn't much of a bear case. When Uber is going to be rolling out drone service next year, 2020. So we're literally like just a little over a year away before we see drone services, right. Personal drone flights where you're going to people in drones flying in quad rotor drones and stuff. We're only a little over a year away from that. So this right here is the fact that there's 62 companies here. 62. Just think about that. 62 companies that have some sort of autonomous vehicle testing going on in this state right now. That lets you know that this ain't going nowhere.
Right. You would think that other states that really don't have a whole lot of traffic, like Idaho or Wyoming or something like that, you would think that they would allow autonomous vehicle development in their state, as a way to improve infrastructure.
No, that's a very good point, man. I mean, I guess the problem there is that at the same time, you also have, so in those places, there's a lot of like, those places also accommodate a lot of the trucking routes, right?
Right.
So there's a lot of like human truck drivers who are largely dependent upon those type of places to not adapt these types of technologies, right? Like, what you'll always hear, yeah, liberal California list, liberal California that, whatever, right? California is always going to be the place to where you can go there and just do any old shit and they'll just let you. But in other places, they want to protect what they want to basically protect the jobs, if you will, for those people. Like in places like Idaho and stuff, they don't really have a lot of people. So if you then roll out like a autonomous driving infrastructure, then that's just going to even cut what what jobs that are there for some of those people. Like a lot of those states, they're hands off. They don't really want to deal with it per se. But at some point, there's going to be Tesla semis rolling through their shit. They're going to have to.
Right. And the reason why the only reason I brought it up was that because it's low hanging fruit from an infrastructure perspective because
Yep.
there's very few quantity of vehicles on the road that you have to contest with. So if you're trying to design a network for autonomous vehicles, then that actually is a better place to test it than, let's say, California or Arizona, where you have all of this bureaucracy in place. Because
Mm-hmm.
and plus you're talking about connecting from the Midwest all the way up to Canada, right, and then back down to Mexico. So it isn't
No,
just a straight highway.
no, you're right, and that's the thing. See, this is kind of where we're at in the discussion, right? Because you're absolutely right with regards to that. And it's kind of a juxtaposed sort of thing because it's just like you said, well, so in places where they're heavily concentrated, heavily populated, a lot of people. I mean, hell, dude, California is the lawsuit capital of the United States. Okay, it's the car accident capital of the United States as well, right? But at the same time, guess who's the most aggressive with pushing this stuff? California. So there's this kind of there is a bit of a juxtaposition in it, but it's just like the cannabis markets. So once California completely flips and commits to something, then everything crescendos and everybody else follows suit. And begrudgingly, places like Idaho, Iowa, Oklahoma, a lot of those Midwest states, North and Midwest states that do have a lot of trucking depots where a lot of stuff is moved from the east to the west, and these are going to be like a lot of your central hubs. Look, as soon as California flips, and as soon as they give Tesla the thumbs up to go ahead and roll these autonomous semis out, guess where those semis are going to be rolling through? Iowa, Idaho, Oklahoma, all those places.
Yeah, Wyoming, those places. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, let's get to the next video or next article. All right, this next one is from ScienceDaily.com. Space telescopes detect water in a number of asteroids. Using the infrared satellite Akari, a research team has detected the existence of water in the form of hydrated minerals in a number of asteroids for the first time. This discovery will contribute to our understanding of the distribution of water in our solar system, the evolution of asteroids, and the origin of water on Earth. The findings were made by a team led by project assistant Professor Fumiko Uwezi, Graduate School of Science, Kobe University. The associate senior researcher Suwano I'm not even going to try to pronounce that last one. Um, the Aerospace Project Research Associate. All right, I think that's just giving credit. Um, our Earth is an aqua planet and is the only planet in our solar system where the presence of water on the planet's surface has been confirmed. We are, however, not yet sure how our Earth acquired water. Recent studies have shown that other celestial bodies in our solar system have or used to have water in some form. Asteroids are considered to be one of the candidates that brought water to Earth. Note that the liquid water is not flowing on the surface of the asteroids, but water is retained in the asteroids as hydrated minerals, which were produced by chemical reactions of water and anhydrous rocks that occurred inside the asteroid. That is aqueous alteration. Hydrated minerals are stable even above the sublimation temperature of water ice. Thus, by looking for hydrated minerals, we can investigate whether asteroids have water. Um, this is very interesting. I mean, there's so much water, so many gallons, billions of gallons of water on on Earth. You mean to tell me that an asteroid brought all that stuff here? I don't think so.
I don't think the asteroids brought it here, man. I just think asteroids contain them. And they may actually contain, when you really think about it, they may actually contain also water that have, like, let's just say, non-terrestrial minerals. And I think that might be where the value in ice and water that's found on asteroids, right? Because the traditional composition of H2O based on the molecular structure, it's the same. However, there's also like the secondary, tertiary, and quaternary mineral elements that might be contained in that water that you won't find here on Earth.
I know.
All right, now this article, they are basically saying, there's water in this asteroid belt, because the asteroids, most of the asteroids are within the asteroid belt. So that itself, the water itself, means there's going to be a lot of companies coming up. That's main focus is going to be mining asteroids, because once you get to the asteroid belt, you can sling yourself out to the outer reaches of the solar system, because the asteroid belt is between Mars and Saturn. No, Mars and Jupiter. Mars and Jupiter. So you can create, some of these asteroids are large enough to build stations on. So you can build a central station on some of these central stations on some of these asteroids and go out and mine water. And the water can really sustain other mining journeys to find other minerals, or to mine other moons of planets, or to do scientific studies. So this is a big discovery, and not only
Lionel,
this is a big discovery, but they're going to keep discovering.
I was going to say, Lionel, that's a really good point you bring up, because I think maybe like the perception is that, okay, you're going to go to an asteroid, you'll find an asteroid that has water, right? And then what? We're going to take the water and just bring it back to Earth?
No,
you're gonna use the water. You're gonna use the water on that asteroid for something else.
Because they can make fuel out of water. They got
to
separate the oxygen from the hydrogen. They can make fuel out of that. And even if, I'm not gonna say if, when we populate the rest of the solar system, they're gonna sell that water. They're gonna sell that water. So when Mike go Titan and he wants some water, they're gonna sell him that water.
Yeah. What about those minerals in those the minerals contained in the asteroid water, right? So let's just presuppose, all right? So we get to an asteroid, we start mining it, we're taking out chunks of ice, and then what we're doing is we're rendering that water down. So we're boiling it down. Part of it is being used as a propulsion or as a fuel source, And then there's other minerals that are being extracted out of it, again, that aren't terrestrial to Earth, right? So
And
now we also have a concentration of minerals that can then be sent down to Earth for God knows what. I mean, I guess that's the part of mining asteroids, right? To see what kind of minerals we do have that you could have access to and what those minerals could do. I mean, that's sort of what gives space exploration, asteroid, doing the exploration on various asteroids to see what minerals are there. My thought is that that's the thinking behind why you would do it, is because it's actually multivariant when you really start to break it down. We're not just look, the Earth is what, three quarters of the Earth's surface is covered in water, 70% or something like that.
yeah,
It's about to be more than that. It's about to be 80%.
Okay, yeah. With global warming, with global warming and everything, because we have a shit ton of ice that's melting down, right? So,
right.
do we need more? Do we need more water in that regard? No. However, if we're thinking about it in terms of the way you kind of broke it down, then yeah, then it starts to make sense.
And
Well, we also have to keep in mind that what's on Earth is salinated versus what we don't know what out there. We don't even know if that's salinated or not.
right.
That's what I mean. The minerals that are contained in it, we don't even know.
Right.
And I'm sure somebody, come on now, we humans. I keep putting this out there. Human behavior. We're not gonna be benevolent just because we landed on Io or Mars. There's gonna be a marketing company that's gonna say, hey, this water has been sitting out in the ice cold space for billions of years just for
Oh my
you
God.
to grab this plastic container and drink it.
$50.
$20.
$50
Yeah,
for
yeah,
for a typical bottle of water. We mined it on what asteroid? What let's name an asteroid.
yeah, XR22.
Okay, so XR22 water, $50 a bottle.
Right.
What do you say, Lino? What do you
Hey
say?
man, hey, we trillionaires, man. We trillionaires. We trillionaires, man.
There's so many people who would do it. They buy it. That's the funny
Right.
thing about it. They buy it.
Yes. Because I know they'll buy it because right now they buying water called smart water.
Man, look, let me mute.
Now, anti-gravity. Do you have anything?
Oh, this up his field, anti-gravity.
No, I'm just listening in for now.
All right.
All right, he went.
Guess he wasn't grounded.
Uh-huh.
Paul Bryant.
Oh, shit.
Paul Bryant in the chat says, even better question is why do some planets have water and others don't? If you can understand that then you can start to understand planetary engineering.
From my understanding, the Earth is unique because we're in something called a Goldilocks zone. Not too hot, not too cold. Mercury, too close to the sun, everything boiled off. Venus, too close to the closer to the sun, but they got trapped in a greenhouse gas environment. Everything boiled off. Mars, I don't know how Mars's atmosphere got stripped away. Those are the smaller planets. The giants, from my understanding, is for a planet to be that big, they almost have to be gas giants or water worlds like you see Neptune and Uranus. Neptune, especially Neptune. Neptune
Mhm.
is somewhat of a water world, but the gravity there is I just know it's somewhat of a water world. Neptune and Uranus. That's how they're so big.
I think I'm following where Paul is going with that, where he's going with that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And perhaps, if we're going to sort of think macrocosmically speaking, right? Um, some and I mean, look, Earth has largely been geoengineered, right? So if we were to take an assumption that there has been some level, some form, and I can't really speak to the nature of it, but geoforming of some kind on these other planets, right? Some of them are geared maybe perhaps towards water H2O extraction. Some of them might be geared towards extraction of other different types of precious metals and minerals and stuff like that. Um, so that's a very intriguing inquiry that he would put out there. It really gets you to thinking about it. Like, why do some of these celestial bodies have the type of composition and makeup that they do have? That's a very deep question. I've never really put that kind of thought into it.
Yeah, Paul Bryan says we have to think outside of. He said the Goldilocks zone theory doesn't make sense. Sounds good, but Earth doesn't support life as we know it. Other planets should support life native to those environments.
Yeah, exactly. I know. I follow exactly. That's what I'm saying. I follow where he's going with it, and I haven't really given it that kind of thought. But that's very true because just think about how we operate right now on this planet. It's largely in juxtaposition as to how the planet operates itself. A lot of what humans do in order to establish any sort of society or technologically advanced society as we would like to consider it, it's largely to the juxtaposition of how the Earth does its own sort of growth death cycle. What we do is we more or less kind of extract from the earth, and there's more of a death cycle taking place more so than interacting in more of a natural conjunctive sort of way, where what we're doing is we're interacting with the earth through its productive cycle per se. A lot of what we do is deforestation, pollution of various types. You know, so that there is something to be said about that. There's a lot of thought to be put into this with regards to that.
Yeah, I think some planets will be able to be terraformed, planets or moons, but some won't. Like for example, Jupiter. Uh, I don't see that being terraformed anytime soon,
Right now,
or anyone going through the trouble of it.
right now, terraform the term of humans, us being able to live on them.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Unless we're just like sucking Neptune dry of water, that could also be a possibility. Like a level 3 civilization.
Mm, mm, mm. I would like to see that.
And I mean, if we're doing that to a planet like Neptune, the size that it is, I mean, shit. Why are we doing that? What's the reason that we would do that on a planet that the size of Neptune?
Because we can. For
I mean,
what?
is that the reason? I mean, because we can, or there has to be something else. There has to be a reason, right? Or
I'm
maybe,
pretty sure.
or maybe
I'm,
not.
I'm, I'm pretty sure when the time comes, at that time when we progress to that level of technological advancement, there will be reasons to uh, take water from a planet. Just like there are reasons to create Dyson spheres to harness 100% of a sun's energy. There are gonna be reasons we can't think of right now. Now, I'm not saying
Lionel, I was gonna say. I mean, I always think industrial, right? So anytime you're gonna go to extract something, it's gonna be because you have a use for it.
right,
So
right,
that's going to be my first impetus is to think industrial application.
right.
Right. Well, if we, populate in our universe, at least, from
Yeah, I guess.
Mercury to Pluto. I don't know if there's enough water in any one of those places. So maybe take some from Neptune and Uranus to offset that. Who knows? Take energy from the sun. There's a lot of possibilities.
You say Pluto, but I think Pluto is more of a planetoid, is it not?
It's a dwarf planet.
Right, but it has ice on it, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, you would use a laser to actually, melt it at a faster rate to get the necessary liquid that you need out of it.
Mm-hmm.
I heard they're going to reclassify it as a planet, but they keep flip flopping on it.
Yeah. Now there are other large objects out there past Pluto, but they're small. They're small, smaller, but they're still big. If you understand what I'm saying, but they're not planets at the same time. I think I just confused some people.
All right, let's move on to the next article.
Yeah.
All right, this one is from Tesserati. NASA lab confirms DNA sugar can be made in space, adding evidence that life could be all over the universe. Yeah, this is NASA researchers at Ames Astrophysics and Astrochemistry Lab in Mountain View, California, have provided the first experimental evidence demonstrating that sugar and DNA, two deoxyro the what is it? Deoxyribose, can be formed in in interstellar space. In their study published on December 18, 2018, in the journal Nature Communications, Michael Nuvio, George Cooper, and Scott Stanford combined organic compounds, water vapor, and light, all elements present in interstellar space, inside a vacuum chamber, mimicking the cosmic environment, and observed the results. Along with DNA sugar, a variety of other sugar derivatives were found to have been created. This discovery is more evidence that the chemical building blocks of life could be common all over the universe, seeding other planets as they did Earth in ancient past. One of the biggest questions science is constantly pursuing is whether we are alone in the universe, a research endeavor that takes many paths. Astrophysicist Carl Sagan is famously quoted often saying, "The nitrogen in our DNA, the calcium in our teeth, the iron in our blood, the carbon in our apple pies were made in the interiors of collapsing stars. We are made of star stuff." We are made, yeah, we are made of star stuff. It meant that the universe is filled with the building blocks of life. Thus, the pursuit to find out how building blocks combine to actually form life is an endeavor with the farthest reaching implications. Scott Stanford, one of the study's researchers, added to this in reference to his own team's experiment, saying the universe is an organic chemist. It has big beakers and lots of time, and the result is a lot of organic material, some of which is useful to life. Oh man, this is that takes a lot of research. I don't know about you guys. That's a lot of brain power. That takes a lot of brain power to sit down and think of something like that.
I was going to say, I think that's where we start to get really into the realm of like quantum physics and quantum mechanics. I was really deep into that maybe like 10, 12, 15 years ago. But I think we start getting into that realm right there. There's a lot of depth in that. There's a lot of depth in that because what it does is it requires you to really think pragmatically about how all of these different chemical reactions and chemical compounds came about in order to create the complex organisms that we do find not only on, well, not only here, but within ourselves, because we ourselves are very complex organisms. So, there's a very serious question underlying that.
Lionel Jenkins.
This is above my knowledge grade, so I'm just going to take what they said at face value. And I think I got some feedback.
That might be me. Hold on.
I'm going to take what they said at face value and go off that. I like the part that he said, space is a big science chemistry set with big beakers and a whole lot of time. That's a good way of looking at it. I like that. This is interesting. I'm interested to see where else they go with this sugar fine.
Yeah, personally,
Anti-gravity.
I think it's a big breakthrough. If they can reduce, it was sugar, right? They said they reproduced sugar DNA.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Okay. Yeah, well, because once they do sugar is the building blocks of all of this more complex stuff like carbohydrates. So yeah, in the future, maybe they can just fabricate if they have the base resources, fabricate food in space, so they don't have to have it shipped from the Earth like they do now.
All right, we'll move on to the next article. This last one is from NationalGeographic.com. 12 new moons found orbiting Jupiter. In a curveball of cosmic proportions, astronomers went looking for a hypothetical planet on the far fringes of our solar system. Instead, found 12 new moons dancing around Jupiter, doing the Harlem Shake. To be clear, the moons are no Ganymede, the largest moon in the solar system. They are tiny, some barely a mile across, and some are tracing all kinds of weird paths around the giant world. The team found the new moons by accident, thanks to serendipitous, serendipitous alignment of Jupiter with their initial research project and some recently installed telescope technology. Fascinating, says planetary scientist Doug Hemingway, the University of California, Berkeley. This is a great reminder that when you build up capability to study one thing, you never know what else you might discover along the way. Planet paparazzi. Normally, spotting new moons around Jupiter is quite difficult. Anything small enough to still be hiding from our view is quite faint. And tracking those dim dots requires powerful telescopes that often have too small of a field of view to capture the entire Jovian system. To make matters worse, Jupiter is quite bright and its glare can obscure tiny moons. That's interesting.
Yeah, they were looking at, like the article said, they were looking at something else, and they built machinery to look at that. And someone said, you know what? Since we got this, let's look at the planet. And lo and behold, they found 12 new moons, which brings the total moons of Jupiter up to 70 something moons. That's a lot of moons, man.
Anti-gravity?
Nothing to add to this one.
Okay.
I was just going to say, it's interesting that in 2018, going on to 2019, we're still finding moons.
And we're supposed to have the most powerful telescopes, right? So I don't know, man.
I mean, that's just, that's I'm not even on some conspiratorial stuff, right? I'm just it's well, I guess what I'm remarking on is the nature of discovery, right? Like that's just it's very interesting, man, how we know so much and then all of a sudden, something can come out and say, "Hey, we just found a few more moons on this planet, that are orbiting around this planet that we've long known to exist." And it's just like, wow, we've long known this planet to exist, but we didn't know these planets or these moons that were orbiting around it. We just discovered this now. So, that's not it's not it's again, it's not nothing that I'm giving like a conspiratorial tone or anything like that. It's just interesting. We know these celestial bodies exist and we've known them for a very long time, but and then in 2018, 2019, all of a sudden, oh, there's moons. Were these moons not there at one point?
Well, they said Jupiter is so a lot of the moons that they discover are smaller than Ganymede, and
Mm-hmm.
Jupiter can obscure them seeing these moons.
Okay.
So they
But
they just so happened to find it.
if we were to kind of go off of the presupposition or the idea or notion that that our own moon, Luna, for example, is artificial. Who's to say that these moons that are newly discovered aren't artificial, right? Because
What
Artificial.
do you
we
mean
do
artificial?
Yeah, yeah. Please break that down.
artificial in the sense that so there's a theory that's postulated with regards to our own moon that it was placed there. It's not actually like like some sort of celestial body that kind of ended up there, but that it was put there, right? And so I'm just kind of like following the line of logic, right? Because we've known all of our planets in our solar system have existed. However, if we're newly discovering moons on these planets, can we theoretically kind of go down that same road to suggest that maybe even those moons were artificially placed there, given that there's a theory that postulates that our current moon was artificially placed? And I'm just putting this out there for the sole sake of conversation. I'm not trying to imply or suggest anything.
I don't know, man. That's a bit of a stretch without any clear evidence
Well,
for it.
well
I
we're,
mean,
we're
they say
talking we're talking about the celestial bodies, right? So this is going to be a bit of a stretch. That's why I'm like I'm not presupposing anything. I'm just throwing it out there for the topic of discussion, given that we're talking about moons that are newly discovered and what has been said about our own moon, right? So I'm just saying, like, okay, we've known these planets have been there. However, we're just now discovering these moons that orbit around these planets. I mean, would it be a stretch to suggest that maybe these moons are even artificial in nature, given that it's been postulated that our own moon is artificial? That's all I'm throwing out there.
all right, I got one more that I think most people here would actually grasp and actually appreciate. So this next one is from CGTN. Alibaba opens AI future hotel. I think this is pretty interesting. Being able to check in with your smartphone, um, the whole entire facility being smart in itself, being able to use facial recognition to actually check in. Gentlemen, have anything you want to add to that?
No, that's interesting. Did they say which city it's in?
Hangzhou City, East China.
Oh, okay.
Wow, this is Alibaba who did this?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I watched the grand deployment. I guess that's what they call it, because I think the hotel was already open before, but I think that they just added all these features to it, and it is pretty slick. It's a very slick hotel. If you look at some of the rooms and stuff like that, how they're designed, that's like the wave of the future. I haven't seen anything like that in the United States, and I've been at 5-star hotels too. So I know, Gant. All right, it's 10:30. We're here for probably another 30 minutes, and we'll have open mic. Paul Bryan, if you want to get on, you can get on. J. Charles, what's going on? Um, Dollar Wood, what's up? Richard Dixon, what's going on? YS3O, what's going on? C Boogie, straight ahead. Christian, what's going on?
Yeah, shout outs to everyone who's dropped in on this Christmas Eve, to nerd out and talk tech.
Yeah, Vic Shepard, what's going on? And Ghana Warrior and Dante S.
Yeah, welcome everyone.
Yes. We're getting close to that 500 subscribers. We're at 495 right now.
Yeah, man, I saw that, man. We're inching and creeping, man. That's good stuff, man. Really good stuff.
We had more subscribers before, but YouTube did their purging and said they was purging of spam accounts and whatnot. So looks like we've lost some subscribers, but we gained some actual
I
subscribers.
was gonna say, how many did we lose out of that purge?
Oh,
I don't
probably
I don't imagine.
probably about 200 or so.
Really?
Yeah, we had something like 600 before, then it just dropped one day, and I woke up one morning and saw that everything was gone. And I said, "Wait a second, what happened?" And
Damn. I had no idea we were. I had no idea we ever went above 500. I thought we were always kind of making our way up to that. I didn't know we even actually eclipsed 500.
yeah, I had hit my no up one day, and I was like, "Do you see the subscriber count? Way over 600 or something like that. Forget what it was.
What?
I think we were close to
Huh?
almost. We were pushing what 654 or something like that.
Really? When was this?
This was probably what early November. This is long before Thanksgiving, so it. I found it interesting because then like one day I woke up like after Thanksgiving and it was gone, but we still
Yeah.
managed to be like 454, and then now we're at 495. So
That's
um,
what I mean. It seemed to me like we always kind of been. I think since November we were at like 400, and it's just been like this slow climb towards 500. I didn't know I had no idea. At one point we were at like over 600. Wow.
now, did you wrap up your daughter's gifts or your gifts for anybody?
Man, I got to do what I do for Christmas, man. I got a 7-year-old man who's just like
Yeah.
gave me a list of like, uh, uh, front and back of a Christmas list, right? So I'm like, all right, we got to do. Let's pick like the main stuff out of this because yeah, we can't do all of this. So, but this is I'm 7 years in, being a father and doing this whole Christmas thing with my daughter and stuff. So it's becoming kind of like clockwork now. She gives me the list. I know what to go through, what to get her. I know the key things that she really wants, and then all the other stuff she's probably just seen on YouTube. And I get her the stuff that she really wants, and then we just go with that. Yeah.
I know you finished your Christmas gift wrapping, shopping, whatever you had to do.
Yeah,
I think.
he's wrapping up some catalytic converters.
Oh, the Palladium gangster.
The only reason why I say that, man, it's because when I was in Chicago, man, for a few years, man, that was a big thing, dude. And I honestly, I was kind of like scratching my head trying to figure it out. Like, dude, who the hell steals catalytic converters, right? That's not a thing here in California, quite frankly. It really isn't, because catalytic converters really isn't sort of like the mark of the emissions legislation that's here, right? It's stipulated that you have to have a catalytic converter on your car, yeah, but it's really about the formulation of the fuel, right? That's why gas on average is like 10 cents to 15 cents per gallon more than it is everywhere else in the United States, because the gas here in California has to be formulated differently. It really doesn't have so much to do with the catalytic converter per se.
Anti-gravity. Have you finished your or do you what are you doing right now for the most part?
Well, I was gonna say, good answer. That guy doesn't celebrate Christmas.
Yeah, I had to make sure I remind myself about that.
I'm just kind of chilling out, just enjoying it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I heard Starbucks is open, so that's probably where I'm going to be tomorrow.
Oh, make sure you use the public Wi-Fi too.
Yeah, I have my company laptop with me. Don't worry.
That's awesome. You gotta do that. Write your password down on a sticky note and leave it on the laptop too.
Right.
Yep. Hey, dude, look, dude. And in the honor and in the in the spirit of full disclosure, one of the laptops that I have is an old company laptop, and I had to do exactly what Mike just did. I have a sticky note with the password on it in case I ever forget it.
The best way to do it is to actually, with your password for a corporate laptop, the policy is usually every 45 days to 90 days. So I don't know if you leave it on a laptop even makes any sense, but
Well, the thing about it is that if as long as I'm not logging into the VPN anymore, right? So the only password I have to put in is basically just to unlock the Windows screen, and then that's it. If I was logging into the VPN to do anything else, that's where the password, yeah, they required that thing had to be changed out. I think it was like every 45 days.
right. Yeah, so I
But then again, I haven't worked for that company in God, what, 3 years? So it's whatever.
so are you all set for Saturday?
Yes, actually, man, very much so. There's actually a few more resources that I'm going to add to the docket for Saturday because, in light of, tonight's hangout, some of what's been going on in terms of the global markets. I think will be what I this was that that's gonna be is that gonna be Friday where we're gonna largely talk about what's taking place here over this past weekend, Friday and then today with regards to the stock market and all that. Are we gonna talk? I would really like Dollar Will to really go in on that because he went in on it on Friday, but then today the Dow dropped 653 points, I think it was. And so this
Wait,
is
are we
a
in open
very
hangout right now?
Yeah, this is
we're
open.
we're open. Yeah, we're open hangout right now. Yeah.
Okay, because I
Yeah.
wanted to speak a little bit on this because
Go
Steve
ahead. Go ahead, dude. Go
Mnuchin,
ahead.
he either he did some I think he's a complete idiot. I don't know if you guys saw, but he called up the six major banks in the U.S. On his vacation in Mexico on a Sunday, right? But then what he did is he released a statement saying that all these banks are liquid. So it's two things: either there's something seriously wrong, or he's a gigantic idiot because everyone is freaked out now. The markets they're like no one doubted the liquidity of the banks before. Is he telling us something that we didn't know before? Is there something wrong in the banking sector right now? And I think maybe he did it because he wanted to appease, Trump, kind of because he got caught with his pants down with some of his former statements. But I don't know. What do you guys think? I think it was a huge lap in judgment. It kind of added a little bit to that 600-point fall.
You know what? Honestly, dude, like, I mean, that this is kind of where I think Dollar Will could really kind of chime in on this one. I'm not really too sure what to think of this, right? But I was listening to the brother from Rethinking the Dollar earlier today, and since last week, man, some of the videos he was dropping, this dude is spot on. He's spot on, and um, I don't know. I'm not sure what Mnuchin's what his angle was on this. I think in the email chain, I think Dollar Will had put a reply in there, kind of speaking to the fact that like this dip or the dip where Fox News and a lot of these other outlets are basically, it's the typical talking points. Oh, well, when the market dips, it's time to buy. But Dollar Will had a really, really good point. He was like, this ain't the part of that to buy in, right? Because there's going to be another dip. So, when you say Mnuchin kind of coming out and speaking to what he's speaking to, talking about the liquidity in the markets, that's you would think that that's kind of like a signal to, go ahead and start to dump money back into it, to kind of prop it back up. But I'm not sure if I see it, man, because in a lot of the other discussions that I'm hearing on YouTube and stuff, and when you look at the charts and you look at the numbers, I'm kind of where Dollar Will's at. He's like, no, there's going to be another dip, and then after that dip, that's when perhaps you want to start to buy. But he's not on this hangout here to kind of give his full input. But I think that's what my takeaway was from his response in the email.
What's going on, Jack Charles?
Bro, Jack, what's
Uh,
good with you, man?
what's up, brothers? What's going on?
What's up, Jack?
So Gravity. Yeah, I'm kind of interested to see how things play out too, man. Cause I guess what he's saying. I watched a little bit of that video, and he was saying potentially the market can last if it continues to drip the dip the way it's going. He says 55 days, but that's like a whole economic collapse. So I don't see that really happening. That's what I'm trying to figure out how far you guys think it's gonna go down, right? Like how much
Man,
damage
that
you
brother
see
said in the
involved.
video, if the trend continues in 45 days, the Dow dips to zero. He said 45 days.
Yeah, but I don't think they're gonna let it get that bad. Like that's just everybody be obliterated. But
They have
what do you
stop
think?
loss. They have
Explain that.
stop
What,
loss.
what what's the stop loss? Explain it to me.
I think it's I forget the exact numbering. Is it like a 1,000-point drop or something to that effect? It stops trading, so it shuts
Mm,
off the stock market.
okay. And if that happens, how long does it stop for? This for that day?
Yeah, for that day.
Okay.
This happened a lot during the 2008 2009 financial crisis. They had to do it a couple of times.
Mm.
It's not pretty to say that, you know.
Do you think it'll be able to maintain confidence pretty much in the markets? Because um obviously people got some of their retirements tied into it, right? So it's like I would think people are nervous during this Christmas break. Like they should be a little bit nervous right now because obviously people portfolios are being affected. So you think you think they're still gonna be able to instill confidence in the common man, or you think that's kind of like finished
At
now?
the moment, not so much because the shutdown is putting a lot of pressure on people
Mm,
because there's something like 1 million federal workers right now who aren't going to get a paycheck. I'd be curious to see how that would affect the retailers, but I think everyone already made their Christmas shopping already, but it's certainly not good.
I want to. It's gonna be interesting to see how cryptos play out, man, because um, like hasn't cryptos been kind of like in the green right now during all this? Like they've been, it hasn't been any dips in the crypto market, right?
Is
Hello?
Lionel here? Maybe he'll be able to.
No, he just jumped off.
Oh, okay.
Okay, do you guys know I haven't checked crypto markets? I know they've
Yeah,
been down, but I don't know
no,
how much.
they've been up. They've been up.
Oh, they've been up recently. Okay.
Yeah, they've been up. All has been up. If Bitcoin goes up, the rest of them go up
Hmm. Interesting.
because they all trade through Bitcoin mostly.
Yeah, again, like I was gonna say, like it's gonna be interesting to see how things play out. It's gonna be, I think 2019 is gonna be a very interesting year. Real interesting.
Yeah, Bitcoin. Actually, they all just went down. But they didn't go down significantly like they did last week. So they're right around where they need to be.
Mhm.
Um, Ethereum was down to $95 last week or 10 days ago. Now it's up to 132. Bitcoin is at 3,900, and it was down to 3,100 last week. Um, what else? Was Litecoin? Yeah, Litecoin was down to $22 or $20, and now it's up to $30 last week. So it's up to $30 this week. Um, yeah, so they've all rebounded from where they would have been last week. So
Yeah.
Zcash, Zcash had took a major hit, but it's bounced back too.
Uh, yeah. Like I said, like it's gonna be kind of interesting to see how they fix this, man, because you know, with the dark, with the Dow, dropping in points, and especially with all this debt we have, like we've been calling this out. We said this was gonna happen, especially you guys been saying it was gonna happen months, years, like maybe like months ago. So it's like it's happening. So it's like we did call this out. So it's just it's want to see how things play out and see how things go from there. I know a lot of people are not really even like it's like they kind of knew it was coming, but they're just like, well, I'm not gonna focus on it. But once that contain people with retirement start getting hurt, it's gonna be like oh wait again. Oh wait, oh
Hmm.
seven, oh seven. So that was bad news.
Yeah, Apple is actually down, not significantly, but down from their traditional where their nominal rates are. Um, just about everything is down. Amazon is down. Microsoft is down. Google has always been bouncing around, but it's still below 1,000.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so we'll probably. I mean, it's early in the week too, so I mean, things change by Friday. So usually at the closing of the bell, so we'll tell the difference.
Understood. I remember that was an email that circled around. I think I don't know, it was that German documentary regarding Africa's uh tech startup.
Okay,
Did you see it?
I watched it just now.
All right, yeah, man. That was really interesting, man. How what was really surprising to me is this these startups they're creating, right? Which I think were very impactful to their country, but it looked like to me they didn't use a lot of money to start up, and it was like as far as the like this the just like the ride app for the motorcycles, that was interesting.
Hmm.
And also it saves money too. It's like it's also a bank, and another one too is the apps for the children in the schools,
Hmm.
right, for education. So it's like all these no, another thing that was interesting too as well was the 3D printing, how he made a 3D printers, and he's trying to create 3D printers for hospitals with all these spare parts. He's creating his own 3D printers. So it just made me think about, you know, how creative, the minds are in Africa, right? And there's still more work to be done. There's still problems that need to be solved. So it made me think about like, you know, there's so many opportunities there, and just watching that documentary opened my eyes, like really, like it's literally wide open, and there's work to be done there, and there's opportunities there, but I think it might be an issue of, it's not being publicized as much in the Western Hemisphere, right? So that's kind of like what I think it is. But what do you think is the problem? Why a lot of people are not really abreast of what's going on out there and in the whole African tech boom? What do you
Africa
think it
doesn't
is?
Africa doesn't have its own media platform to tell their side of the story.
Mm,
For so long, Western media has controlled the narrative for Africa, and it has made Africa an undesirable place to be, and it's uninhabitable. And we have to send money to Sally Struthers and Save the Children Project and things like that. And not saying that there isn't any famine and poverty, but the thing is that this is going on. If more people knew that this was going on, they'd invest more into it. And what would that do to Africa? It would turn Africa into a tech hub.
mm,
That's something that America is not ready to deal with yet. Europe is not really ready to deal with it either. But America in itself is not really, they don't know how to perceive Africans doing the same thing that they're doing, right? Because the whole idea is that black people are stupid, they're lazy, they're good for nothing,
mm,
like that stereotype. And when black people don't live up to that stereotype, especially black men, then what happens is you have what they call an identity quake in psychology, where
mm,
what you thought was the truth is not actually the truth, and it kind of sets you off. It actually irritates you.
mm. Interesting. So they're not ready because what I see what's going on down there, man, it looks like they're going to be just. It's like the only thing with the problem is that the infrastructure is not there. Once they have an infrastructure, they can compete with. I think it take another couple more generations, but they're gonna compete with China, man, because they're creating technology out of nothing, literally out of nothing, and then
Well,
making it happen.
well, you have to keep in mind that they're not trying to compete with anybody. They're
Mm,
actually trying to, fulfill the needs of their environment,
okay.
right? So there's a need for certain types of, software platforms that would actually help accelerate their environment. So they're not really trying to compete with China or Russia or America for that matter, but it has more to do with
Solving problems.
how they respond to the environment with what they have, with what's given to them, right? So for what I saw in that documentary, I would say that that's actually exactly what they should be doing. Had they had more money, you would see a lot more, right? So I don't think infrastructure is so much a limitation because they're already doing something without the infrastructure.
Mm. So let's say that's their goal, right? And they get those things done. What do you see far as technology wise is going to emerge out of that? Because if their main goal is to solve problems, what do you think they can do with that? Like, what? How can they parlay that? Like, what do you think is what's going to go? I don't know what you think, but like, what's next after that once they do solve these problems?
You mean the next step?
Yeah, the next step. Yeah, it's kind of.
Okay, well, the next step would be supply chain management, right? So you need to figure out how to get logistics from point A to point B and so on and so forth. They haven't
Okay.
really figured that out yet. Right now, they've just basically built the software infrastructure, through coding and things like that, and the micro infrastructure from like the 3D printer and 3D printing and things of that nature. utilizing cell phones for ride app sharing or ride sharing and um, other means such as I think I saw something called MediRec, something like that. I think they was using it for medical records
Mhm.
management. Uh, that's all micro infrastructure. So they've already completed that step. So now the next step is to get the supply chain and tie it all in together into a smart city. And how do you connect one African city to another African city across the continent? If one person has Ebola in the DRC, and how with all the challenges of terrain, how do you take a drone and deliver medicine from, let's say, Zimbabwe or Tanzania up to the DRC in a matter of time, um, that a vehicle couldn't get you there? A traditional car, four-wheel vehicle couldn't get you there.
Mm.
And how do you manage a drone to make sure it gets to this destination from point A to point B?
Blockchain and drones.
Right. But what I'm saying is, how do you tie in all of these pieces? How do you tie in the MediRec platform that they developed? How do you tie in the drone? How do you tie in the use cases on the ground in DRC where people are suffering from Ebola and need all these traditional medicines? How do you make sure that the medicine that you're actually delivering is actually authentic and it's not counterfeit coming out of China or some other Southeast Asian country where you can be fooled?
Mm.
I think that's where the blockchain becomes absolutely key.
Right. Right, but you have all of these moving pieces of micro infrastructure that's not being tied in together. So there's a whole lot that needs to be harnessed and put together, and that's where a lot of people like us on these hangouts have to come in 2019 and start knocking shit down.
No, that's very true. Very true.
But I think that documentary is actually really dope. Um, it's a lot of good ideas coming out of there. It's good to see that there's people on the ground, without with unpaved roads, low income environments, just doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing, to address the issues in their environment. I wish more Black people in America were the same way. We talked about this last week a number of times with Paul Bryan and Dollar Will that these opportunity zones. That's exactly what an opportunity zone would do. It would fund projects like that. To be quite honest with you, I would have no problem dropping off 5 bands U.S. cash on projects like that.
I mean, I wouldn't either, man. I mean, honestly, I think that's what our role is, quite frankly. And again, this is coming from discussions that Noah has relayed to me, in dealings that he's had with delegates from other African nations. And they've told us explicitly what they would like to come, what they would like to see from a conglomerate of brothers from the United States, largely. you know what would we be doing to come and bring business and establish trade ties, business ties, all of these different things? Ideally, they'd like to do it with us more so than the Europeans and the Chinese. But if we're not there, if we're not active, and if we're not really pushing the meter on this, then they're really only opted. Their only options are to deal with whatever partners that are there.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And you have to also put into perspective that the people like us who come from the first world coming into a second and third world see things differently than how they see it, right? So we're used to working within bureaucratic red tape and trying to find ways to work within it and work around it. Whereas over there is no real bureaucratic red tape for them to work with. So they just do
You know,
things because they can just do it.
yeah, you know, Mike, and I think that's kind of where the disconnect is with, like, you know, black folks here and you know, our folks in the diaspora, is that you know, we don't really see it in that schism. Like, we are a first world nation, regardless of what it is that we've traditionally had to deal with here as a people. We still exist here in a first world nation. We do have a very much a first world mindset. And I think that's where the disconnect is, because in Africa, not so much so. They want to achieve that. However, they look at us as like the bridge to get there. And we kind of see ourselves as like, well, we were removed from we were removed from the continent, so you guys actually intrinsically have more at stake, more involved than we do. It's a weird catch 22, man, quite frankly.
Yeah, I have ambitions of actually going over there with a backpack and just going from one tech hub to the next one. You know, just seeing what they're doing. You know, if I ever get the loot next year, late next year, then definitely take that trip over there. So yeah, I think Noah is eating.
Yeah, I'm sorry. If you guys hear some background noise, I went to go grab a bottle of wine, so pardon me.
No, no, I'm here. I'm just listening to you guys. It's a good
No, you
conversation.
yeah, no, you didn't have a chance to look at that documentary, did you?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Yeah, the documentary, man. I wanted to send that out to everyone because, Jesus, man, I mean, that's really just a glimpse into the future. It really is. You know, um, for for a lot of what we sort of view the continent as, geez, man, they're very forward thinking. I mean, this is kind of what folks here, black folks here in the States, need to really grasp. It's like, man, look, over in the continent, dude, they're full on some fourth industrial revolution shit. Like, we actually need to like link up and get on par at the same level and make some shit happen. That's really what needs to go down.
Right, right, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. A lot of ideas can come out of that. You know, I like the idea of them just doing stuff, despite the fact that the roads haven't been paved, that the trash hasn't been picked up. They're still gonna keep doing it.
I mean, and you know, what's interesting, Mike, you know, is that like those could even be fourth industrial based solutions,
Hmm.
right? Unpaved roads, so what? You can have autonomous vehicles that can traverse uh, very sketchy terrain. You know, it doesn't necessarily require paved roads and all this type of stuff. I mean, I don't see why there can't be a paradigm where you have high technological, uh, a highly technological sort of community, right? But that's very rural at the same time. I don't see the two being juxtaposed. I see synergy actually.
Right, right. And I like the part about the documentary when the guy was actually recycling, taking the computers, separating the plastic from the aluminum and the other metal pieces, and actually salvaging a lot of the components from inside those computers. I thought that was a pretty ingenious thing. All right. I think if there's nothing else, we'll actually hang it up.
Okay, sounds good. This is a good chat. Was there any questions in the chat?
Oh, Dan. You know what? Let me drop the Dan wants to see the documentary, so let me drop it in the chat form, and then we'll close out.
Okay, sounds good.
Sorry about that. I just dropped off for a quick second.
Okay, yeah, we're about to close out a little bit.
Yeah, Richard Dixon. I'm actually pretty familiar with holism and the BAIO. Yeah, pretty familiar with them. All right, if there's nothing else, we'll definitely be closing out, and we'll see you guys on Wednesday with episode 115, geopolitics. You all have a good holiday.